You guys, get ready for an incredible episode. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Brittni Schroeder. Let me tell you a little bit about Brittni. Brittni is a business coach and marketing strategist, and she helps coaches automate their business, create systems, convert funnels, and scale to six figures and beyond. Brittni worked as a high school senior photographer for over 10 years and then also owned and operated Mosey magazine up until 2017. Her work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Good Morning America, and several other amazing publications. She's worked in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years and recently founded her own nonprofit, the Compassion Club. She currently lives in Utah, and you can find her at brittnischroeder.com or email her at coaching@brittnischroeder.com. Brittni is spelled Brittni, and Schroeder is Schroeder. Brittni is incredible. She's so funny. I met her while doing a presentation alongside her at Utah Valley University earlier this fall. And her story, which we'll get into in this episode, is just truly amazing. She has accomplished so much in so little time, and is just more than willing to share her journey and be an open book with other female entrepreneurs. And that is why we have chosen her as our January Fenomena. So please help me welcome Brittni Schroeder from Brittni Schroeder Coaching. And if you have a second, go follow her on Instagram. Let's get started. Welcome to the Profitability Podcast. I'm Joey.
And I'm Mackenzie.
Join us as we explore success in business and life, proving that while finance may not feel sexy, profitability is. Alrighty, welcome back to the Profitability Podcast. I'm Joey, and we've got Mackenzie and Becca here as usual. And then joining us today, we have Brittni Schroeder, and I am just so thrilled for our audience to meet her and get to know her. She's truly incredible. Brittni and I, we actually haven't known each other for too long, but we both spoke at Utah Valley University to their entrepreneur track that they have and some aspiring entrepreneurs there. And I was like, oh yeah, we need to be friends. And then you came up to me after the end and said the same thing. So it was destiny. So we're really excited to have you here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
All right, let's dive in. Brittni, since I don't really know you, I haven't, met you or anything like that, but Joey's told me all about you. So why don't you go ahead and dive in? Tell us about you in your personal life, what you like to do in your free time when you're not working, and then also take us through your business journey. How did you get started? What pushed you to this career? Just give us and all the listeners a rundown of who Brittni Schroeder is.
Well, I grew up in Utah and I moved away. I've been gone for 20 years and I recently moved back. So I have a son that is 20 that is in Brazil for the next couple of years. And then I have a daughter that is 16 and in high school, she's a wrestler. So that's kind of different, but so wrestling season is just starting. So I'm super excited. Everything outdoors. I love to travel, just all the things. I love people. I love just spending time with people and getting to know people. So I love this kind of stuff. So that's kind of who I am as a person. My entrepreneur journey, gosh, let's see. I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur. It's been a long time, but I think I went to school at Utah State. That's where I graduated in a degree that I've never used, exercise science. Then when my second son was born, this ages me, but that was right when blogging first started. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to blog. I need to blog. And then of course, blogging is super visual. So I am like, I need to learn how to take pictures. And so I got a DSLR camera for Mother's Day and I started taking pictures. And it's kind of funny because as a photographer, you laugh because people will say, oh my gosh, your pictures are so good. You must have a really nice camera. That's kind of a running joke in the photography industry. But I had a nice camera and I started taking pictures. People were asking me to take pictures and I'm like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought, just having a nice camera. So I started learning how to take pictures and I love to learn. And so I was just anything I could find online. I signed up for some courses at the local community college. At this time I was in Michigan. And I just started like just learning and practicing and learning and practicing. And I was just like obsessed with photography. Right around that same time, I took a workshop from another photographer. I don't even think she's in business anymore. And it was how to run a business and all the things. And it's kind of funny because she was saying, oh, you need to raise your prices. And, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm going to raise my prices, like not having any like business sense, but okay, if she says like, we have a mentor and they tell us what to do. And we're like, okay. So right around that same time, we ended up moving from Michigan to El Paso, Texas. And if you are familiar with El Paso, Texas, it's right on the border. And it also has Fort Bliss. It has a military base. So I moved. I had just taken this workshop. And at the time, I think my prices were, this was a long time ago. This was like over 10 years ago, probably like close to 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to charge like $500 for pictures. That's actually a lot in some places, but I was like, oh, I'm going to charge this. And I remember meeting with some other photographers and them saying, oh, you can't charge that much in El Paso. Like nobody will pay that. There's not enough money. And I was like, oh, there's money everywhere. Like, yeah, you just have to find it. Right. And so I was like bound and determined that I was going to like build this business, this high school senior photography is what I was doing at the time. And it's interesting because I was a photographer for a lot of years and I had a lot of success and I was featured in magazines. I was in the Wall Street Journal. I was on Good Morning America. Like I had a lot of success, but I tell people all the time that photography did not come naturally to me. I'm naturally very left-brained but the business part came really naturally to me, but it was the artsy side that I really had to work at. I really had to like work on those skills. And that's usually like opposite. Now I guess I didn't say this, but now I'm a business and marketing coach. But a lot of times when I work with creatives, they really struggle with the business part because they aren't analytic. They are just creative and just, they really struggle with organization and the money part of it. But that came very natural to me. And so I started to build like this business. And it's interesting because before this, because I didn't study anything, marketing or anything in school, it just came naturally. Naturally, I'm an extrovert. Naturally, I am a networker. And I didn't realize that these are just skills that I had. But my strategy was, okay, I need to find people with money. And so I made a list of the top 10 schools. I made a list of all the schools, but then I said, okay, where's the money? Where do people spend money? I started asking people. I started doing like some market research, like, okay, test scores. There's a direct correlation with money and test scores in schools. So I just did all this research and I'm like, okay, these are the schools that I need to target. And I started just building a network and, asking people like, I'm looking for this certain person. I want them to be outgoing. I want them to, I created this avatar in my head without even knowing anything marketing. This is all stuff that you learn, but I didn't know. I just naturally, I came up with it. And I started targeting these bigger schools I knew there was a lot of like money, people who really valued this type of stuff. And I just started doing it. And I set a goal for myself that I was going to shoot every single week. And most of the time it was free. And so I said, okay, I'm going to shoot every week, whether it's free or paid, I'm going to do it. And I did that for 8 months and almost every week. And I made very little money during that time. And I remember just feeling so frustrated because I'm like, gosh, when is it going to happen for me? When is it going to happen to me? And I remember saying that to a friend. We were at a photography workshop and I just said, I'm just so frustrated. When's it going to happen? And it was literally like the next week. And I started getting phone calls and phone calls and phone calls. And I was booked out for 3 months. And the whole time I was in El Paso, that I was like, it took 3 months to get into me. But I had built, with my avatar, I had built, my ideal audience. And that's who I worked with. And I just kept going from there. And I built a brand and I built I built this reputation in this little nook. And then this was my 15 minutes of fame, I guess, but that's when I was on the Wall Street Journal. And during that time too, I started a photography magazine myself. So I had a magazine. And so it was I was like kind of a big deal at this time because I was in the Wall Street Journal. People knew about it. It was all over like local stuff. And then I was on Good Morning America. And then that year I ended up doing like 60 seniors. And I'm like, okay. And this happens to all of us where I'm like, I can't keep going. I cannot sustain this. Like, this is too much. And that's when I said, okay, I'm raising my prices. And I doubled my prices. And it was supply and demand. Every year, I'm like, I kept getting business and I kept raising my prices until I was like making, like between 1,500 and 2,500 on every single client. Like, these are high school seniors, like a one time. And so I had just built this business. And so, I loved it and I was thriving. I was super involved in the community too. I didn't realize like actual networking events were a thing. I just was out like serving in my community. I was on a bunch of committees with the Children's Hospital, Boys and Girls Club, very active in the community. And my business just kept growing and growing and growing. I had created this like really solid brand. I mean, that was a lot of years ago. It was 2018, so 6 years ago. And still to this day, I still get inquiries from people like, hey, are you going to come back and do sessions? It's not like it used to be, but I still do. So I built this really strong brand. Around in 2018, my husband at the time got a job in Houston. And so we had to move. And it was at a time where I'm like, okay, this is a good time to pivot. I wanted to do a business that wasn't location based, because when you're starting, it's a little bit more challenging when you're like a location based. When you are online, you can serve anybody, you can market that way. So I'm like, this is a good time to pivot. And I also during that time started a nonprofit. So I have a nonprofit called the Compassion Club or the Compassion Foundation. And I was working with a lot of like teenagers and stuff. And people would say, oh, you should be a life coach. You're helping all these teenagers. And I'm like, what's a life coach? That's like hokey, like bust out the crystals, like whatever. And so, and then somebody sent me a podcast and I'm like, oh, I love this stuff. Like personal development, self-help, all those things. I got certified as a life coach and around that same time. And then I was like, you know what, this is a good time to pivot. And I started helping people with their businesses. And I'm like, you know what? I love this stuff. I love building things. I'm very analytical. I love systems. I built a photography business. I built a magazine business. I started a nonprofit. Like, this is like what I'm good at. I know how to do this. I know how I'm techie. I know systems. Like, this is what I want to do. And so that's kind of what brought me to being a business and marketing coach, is just building successful businesses and realizing like, okay, I can help other people do this. And so that's kind of been my entrepreneur journey. And so now I help businesses with building businesses, setting up systems, automations, scaling, all of the things is building the funnels. That's what I do now. So that brings me to now, and that is what I'm doing. So that's me in a nutshell, my story.
And how long did you start that business in 2018? Your marketing and business coaching, did that start in 2018 when you decided to pivot away from photography?
Like more or less, like, because we had moved to Houston at that time. And so I was still kind of doing a little bit of photography because that's what I knew. And then I was kind of doing both, but I was helping a lot of people with their businesses. So even photographers, when I got asked to speak at photography conferences, I was always asked to speak on the business part. And so I was slowly building that at the same time. I had the luxury of, I had at the time, my husband was, had a great job. And so I could take my time and do it. But I was building both of those at the same time. So more or less 2018, 19 was when I just kind of slowly started dabbling in it. And then COVID hit. So then we all know, what happened then. But that was when I was focusing on growth. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to grow my social media. I'm going to grow my email list. This is a time of growth. We're stuck at home. We're in front of screens all the time anyway. So let's build this online. So that's basically when I kind of started.
And what I find interesting is a lot of our listeners are either new businesses or people wanting to become entrepreneurs. And I just love how you kind of talked about how you jumped into multiple different things, but ultimately it led to where you are now. And it's just a good lesson that sometimes you may not end up in the first thing you want to try out, but it leads you to what you end up loving. So I just love that. You're not scared to jump in.
And I think too, I say this to a lot of people, as I say, your business is going to evolve. Where you start it's going to change. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they think they're going to start in one place, but then a year later, their business looks completely different. And so it really is. And we all, we're all learning as we go. When I started when you were saying that, Becca, I was thinking of the magazine because it was kind of funny because it was one of my, like a colleague, a friend, another photographer. And he had said, we should start a magazine. And we're like, oh yeah, let's start a magazine. Like literally we knew nothing about anything. We're just like, yeah, we could start a magazine. Let's start a photography magazine. And you learn, like the best teacher is failure. And, I talk about this because I focus a lot on like email marketing and growing your email list. But on your Facebook page, your business page, you were getting as much exposure on your business page as your personal page. And so we were like posting on Facebook and we were selling all these magazines. Well, then Facebook changed the algorithm. All of a sudden we're getting like 0 views on our Facebook page and our sales plummeted. And we're like, what are we going to do? And that was a good lesson at the beginning where it is like, okay, you need to have an email list. You can't just depend on social media. So through failures is when you learn. Also with that magazine, I didn't, okay, this is, I hope I won't get in trouble for this, but I didn't have an LLC or anything because I had just started, I didn't even know what an LLC is, right? And we start this magazine and we get a cease and assist letter in the mail from another magazine that had a similar name. And they were like, we're going to stay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, crap. Like I need an LLC. Like that's how I learned to get an LLC because we got threatened to be sued. And so I think a lot of times we don't know what we're doing. And it's just, we're just out there learning. We're just trying to figure it all out and nobody knows what's going on. But that's really how we learn is through failure, through trials. We're like, okay, I need to have a better system. I need to organize this. I need to have this legal done, all those things. And so, it really only takes one really hard thing for you to like learn your lesson. Like, okay, I'm never doing that again. So I always talk to legal every time I form a business because I know that you can get sued. So, but yeah, we're just kind of learning. We're all just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I would argue, Brittni, that one of the things that makes you as successful as you are, well, 2 things. One is what you just said, right? You find out that you need an LLC and you don't go, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I should never have done this. I'm not qualified. You go, okay, now I better go get an LLC. And you just go with the next right thing. And then the second that you talked about a lot, we talk about finding your secret sauce and what you're really good at. And in the beginning, you talked a lot about how you are a photographer, even though you didn't feel naturally creative. But then you found all the things that you are really good at. You were really good at the business sense of things. You were really good at, all of these other things. And then you just leaned into those things and said, well, I don't have to be the world's best photographer, but I am a really talented photographer who's really good at this. And that makes me unique. I'm curious, like, if you feel like those are the reasons that your business has taken off the way it has, or if there's something else.
No, I love that. I would say that I'm really good at failing. And, it's interesting because with my nonprofit, I will speak at schools and I have this whole presentation and I talk about when I was really young, I failed at a lot of things. I tried out for these sports teams and I didn't make it. And and I think that I learned at a young age to fail. And it's interesting now as I see my kids failing, like it's so hard to see your kids failing. But I also in my head, I'm like, this is going to make you an awesome adult. Like you're failing and you're learning to fail really young because we see the opposite of that is kids or people that, like they never really go through hard stuff. And then they don't have that perseverance or that they fail and they just quit. They're like, oh my, I can't do this. This is too hard. And I quit. And so I think like learning to fail is really like an asset to a business owner because being an entrepreneur is like not for the weak at heart. Like you fail more than you succeed. And if you're not good at failure, like you will struggle as an entrepreneur because you're failing all the time. And so I think learning to fail, another thing I think, and I attribute this to my like upbringing, my country upbringing, but being like working hard and being committed. I'm very like dedicated. I'm very disciplined. I schedule things. I'm very protective of my time. And I think just showing up consistently. I recently just hit 10,000 followers, like a few months ago, I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. And it's like I did a podcast about it in the newsletter. And I was saying there's nothing that I can say like, oh, this is what I did. It was consistently showing up for the last like 4 or 5 years. And I posted Monday through Thursday, like almost always for the last 4 or 5 years. And maybe I had a few things that kind of went viral a little bit, but nothing great. I literally worked for every single one of those followers. And I think a lot of times that's a misconception because of online, like where it's like, oh, this is easy. Like it isn't easy. Sometimes do things happen to you? Yes. Like even me being in the Wall Street Journal and on Good Morning America, there was luck. There's luck involved. Like I was at the right place at the right time. Was I this amazing award-winning photographer? No. I knew people who knew people, and I kind of fell into that. Like it was luck. There was luck, but it was coupled with consistency and like showing up at the right time, at the right places where people knew me. So, like I had a photography magazine. It sounded all like nice and glamorous, but we weren't making like a ton of money, but it opened doors for me because I was networked so well. I knew all the photographers because they were in our magazine. And somebody asked somebody, hey, we're looking for a senior photographer for this article in the Wall Street Journal. And they knew me. And that's kind of how it happens. So it really is consistently like showing up. Like you never know when you're going to have the opportunity, but that's why it's a numbers game. You just got to keep showing up, keep like pushing through it. I have failed so many times, but I keep showing up. I'm really good at failure. So that's my superpower. I'm good at failing. So
Joey says this a lot. She says, you need to be comfortable with failure. She tells our clients this all the time because they are new business owners. And so like being comfortable with failure will have you prepared for the failure that's going to come. But in the end, like you said, it only builds you up and makes you the person you are and the business owner you are. So I love that you said that.
Well, and I think too, it's, just reframe it. Like I will say getting certified as a life coach changed my life. Like I'm a little bit dramatic. I like to tell, I'm very like theatrical, but it really changed my life because it taught me these mindset tools that I didn't realize that I was missing. You don't know what you don't know. And, we think like motivation is the same as mindset, and it's really not, but it's rethinking like your perspective. So you can do something and you can fail, and then you can say, I'm not good. I don't know what I'm doing. I am an imposter, all these things. Or you can reframe it to say, I am learning. This is a learning opportunity. And what did I learn? And I've done that a lot of times. I've done things where I in my head, I build up things like, oh, I'm going to make so much money on this. I'm going to have this like, $75,000 launch. I'm going to do all stuff. And then I'm always like, wah, wah, wah. But like, instead of thinking like I failed, I try to look back and say like, okay, what can I do different next time? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? And how can I be better? And if anybody tells you, I posted this reel, this was a couple months ago, but it said something to the fact of, if somebody tells you like being an entrepreneur is so easy and you're going to make all this money, and they're like a coach or something, they're a coach and they're telling you how easy it is, they're not a good coach, they're a good scammer. because that's not true. And I'm a realist, and I will say like, okay, I will give you these tools, I will teach you these things, but only you can make it work. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of consistency. And so I think it's just really important to just remember that, you look at you can't, comparison is a thief of joy. You cannot compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. And we forget that as an entrepreneur because of like our society, the online, where it just looks like life is so easy, life is so great. And that's just not realistic.
Yeah. There was a quote that I saw that Stephen Colbert said from his improv class, like when he first started. And he said, there are no mistakes, only discoveries. And I thought that was so powerful for entrepreneurs, because I'm like, every time we fail, we want to turn inwards. I think especially as women, we're like, oh, it's me, I'm the problem, or, I must not be qualified or whatever. And if we reframe that, like you said, to, okay, so what did I learn from this and how am I going to change it next time? You could fail 100 times and you just learned 100 lessons and you're still better off. And that's been one of my favorite quotes lately, is just like, yep, things are going to go bad. And I love that you said that, coaches that say it's going to be easy are scammers, because entrepreneurship is the hardest thing that I've ever done by a long shot. And it looks so glamorous online and you think, oh, I can make so much money. And there are moments where it is. Like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But yeah, anyone that says that it's easy is straight up lying to you. And it's okay that you're failing 100 times over. That makes you a good business owner.
And I think another thing to remember is what works for one person does not work for everybody. And I see that like with social media. I'm extroverted. I like to be on camera. I like to get on social media. And it might work for me, but somebody else, that might not be their comfort zone. And I see that too many times where entrepreneurs say, okay, so-and-so did it this way, and so I need to do it that way. And then they get on social media and maybe they're not comfortable in front of the camera. And that, I know you guys know those people where you have secondhand embarrassment for them. You're just like, I can't like watch them. They're so awkward on social media, but it's because we see how people do it and we think, okay, if I want to be successful, then I need to do what they did because it's working for them. And that's not true. Like you need to find your own strengths and find what are you good at. Maybe you are not extroverted. So maybe you're a really good writer and work on SEO. Maybe you can pay for ads. Maybe you have money to invest, and instead of getting on social media all the time, you just invest in some ads and grow your email list. So it's really just finding what you're good at, and don't think because somebody did it one way that you have to do it that way, because it's not always the case.
One thing you said earlier that I really loved was like be consistent and like show up every day. Joey and I just had this conversation the other day because we were talking like we finally hit 1,000 followers, and like that was big for us, and we have been like working so hard to get like 1,000 followers. And Joey was just saying, like, we didn't do anything super crazy or super, like, out of the box for our social media. We just showed up consistently day after day. We posted every day. We didn't miss a day. And, like, that consistency is, like, turning into things for us. And so I just love that, like, even on the days that you, like, have a big failure or whatever, and you want to just, like, cry in your bed, get it out, but then show up consistently, because that's what's going to, like, turn into something for you.
It is. And that's what marketing is becoming memorable. And how are people going to remember you? And, I talked about this when we were at UVU, but there's a study, it's called the Baker study. And it talks about like people are more likely to remember that you're Baker than your last name is Baker, because you visualize it. But that's what marketing is. And we are so inundated with all of this like content, like emails and social media, that it's like we have to hustle. Like we have to show up, and being consistent is how you do that. Keep showing up, keep sending those emails, keep posting on social media. So when somebody's like, oh, who was that one like business and marketing coach? Like hopefully my face is flashing on their social media because I'm consistently showing up. So it really is just, you got to just keep showing up. You just got to keep hustling, keep trying new things, keep networking. It's all the things.
Okay, I have a question. We like to ask all of our guests on here because we love to talk about this. And like Becca said, we like to tell our clients and our people, like, you got to be comfortable in failure and you got to be, ready for it. So I want to know, what was your biggest, fattest failure that you have like had in your business? Maybe it's a couple, but you can choose what you want to share. And then we also like to always ask, like, what did you learn from that? What did you get from that? What came out from that biggest, fattest failure?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if this is my biggest failure because I've had a lot, but this is one that I think about and I talk about a lot. Is this was when I started business coaching. And so with photography, there wasn't a ton of like business. Like I would go to a lot of like workshops and seminars, but it was more like learning how to be a good photographer, not so much like the business part. And so this was right when I started doing business and marketing. And I took Amy Porterfield's class, Digital Course Academy, great course. But of course and I know this now, but at the time I didn't. But when they are promoting and selling it, they are showing like the best of the best, right? So it is, hey, I did this course. My email list was like 200. I made like $40,000. Like those types of stories. I know y'all are like super familiar with those types of stories, right? And so I was just, I was a sponge. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make so much money. And so I did Digital Course Academy, and I did every single lesson by the book. Everything she told me to do, I did. I got Facebook ads. I did all the things. And in my head, you guys, I was going to make so much money. and it took me 6 months to record this because I was still I was learning how to edit and record, and it took me 6 months, a long time to build this course. It's called, at the time it was called Convert, how to convert your followers to clients on Instagram. So I do all the things. I do a webinar, I launch, and it was like, wah. Like, I mean, I sold some, but I definitely did not break. I probably broke even. I'm not going to lie. In my head, I was going to make like $40,000. And I think that I made like $2,000, and I paid like 1,500 in like Facebook ads or something. And I remember just being so like deflated. Like I felt like I don't have depression, thank goodness, but I felt like, oh, I'm so depressed. Like this is so depressing. And for like a week, I just didn't want to do anything because I had like built up for like 6 months. Like I mean, and I'm telling everybody, like, I'm going to make so much money. I'm doing this, you know? And so that was the first, like, it was a good learning experience because first of all, I learned that they are like, all these people they're selling to you, they're going to tell you like the big success stories. They don't tell you the behind the scenes. They don't tell you, who these people are or what kind of network they have or anything like that. So I learned that like, okay, everything is not what it appears to be. And now, I mean, this was like probably 5 or 6 months ago. I had a friend, she was a real estate agent, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make so much money. And she got Amy Porterfield's the course. And I didn't have the heart to be like, oh, honey, you're not.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that was a really good eye opener for me that like, okay, it's not this easy because we're told that's how people sell is like, you're easy. And that's the same. I got certified as a life coach, and kind of they use the same sales tactic. Like, oh my gosh, I'm making so much money being a life coach. I invested $18,000 to get certified as a life coach. And I was under the impression like, oh, I'm going to make this money back so quick because they were so good at marketing and selling. And so I think that those are like I had to go through that so I could learn, And now obviously when I see the problem, if I take a course where I get certified, it's because I want to, not because of like, oh, I'm going to make all this money or, you're going to do this or that. And so I think that those failures, it also gives me like empathy and understanding for people and, those different kinds of failures. I do I do a lot of techie stuff because I set up automations and funnels. So I'm very techie but I wasn't always techie. And I remember working with a friend and we'd say like, oh, he's going to tech shame us because we don't know how to do this. He's going to be like, you don't know how to do that? Like, how do you not know how to do that? And so I think you have to go through those failures because then you get empathy and understanding and, it helps you to be a better business owner, a better coach, a better teacher because you failed so much, So those are some, I mean, I have so many girls.
We all do, right? You're in business long enough. You
all end up the same that I had my hopes up and they failed. I think you have to go through them. You have to go through them to learn. It's the best teacher.
Yeah, you are our second guest that has mentioned empathy. And that has never crossed my mind before doing this podcast of being empathetic to other business owners who are failing. And just yesterday, so at the time we're recording this, we just finished Black Friday. It's the beginning of December. And a friend of mine who will probably call me out for for this when she listens, but she posted on Instagram, I got no sales on Black Friday. My new offering didn't work. Like no one, and she's like, I'm posting this just to show social media it's not all easy, like you're talking about. And the empathy that I had for her, oh my gosh, I was sending her reels about failure and how you become a better person. I was sending her all my favorite quotes. I was sending virtual hugs. Like, I just was like, oh, I've so been there. I've so freaking been there. And not even that long ago, like in some way or another, I fail all the time, every day. And that was the first time that I like looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, like I really am experiencing this empathy that nowhere near this level of empathy for anybody else until you go through those big failures. And I think that's such a hidden benefit of failure is you become, especially as women business owners, like the network of people that if you really got on social media, if you wanted to and shout, I just had this huge failure, the amount of people that would bond together and be like, we've all been there. It's okay.
Oh my gosh, I'm
Is
going to
really
post that. I'm going to steal that, Joey. That's going to be my post next. That's good content.
all you. I love it. I love it.
That's going to be my caption is I just failed hardcore. I'm a failure. I'm a failure. No, yeah, it's true. And I think too, we are, we're constantly comparing ourselves to like these people who've been doing it for years, but we don't really know behind the scenes. Like I think of like a couple entrepreneurs in particular. There's this one and she has a huge following, like 250,000 followers on Instagram or something. And she had posted something where she had said, I had made a goal that I was going to get 5,000 new email subscribers or something. And then she was talking about, and I'm in her broadcast channel on Instagram, and she was talking about, oh, these are the ways to do it, blah, blah, blah. And she names all these ways. I posted this and this and this. Meanwhile, I am like, I'm seeing her ads coming up all over Facebook, all over Instagram, but she doesn't mention that. She's just, these are the ways to do it. But the way she mentions is totally organic. And so I think like a lot of times, like it's okay to, it's okay to be honest. It's okay to say like, hey, this is how I did it. I paid for these email, I paid for ads. It's okay. But a lot of times we don't get that transparency, but it's so refreshing when we do. So, and it's okay to say, because we're comparing ourselves to these people who they have failed, but it's just different for them. They're at a bigger scale. Their fail is not our fail. And you know what I mean? And so it's hard to compare it, but we all fell. And it's that image of just saying, oh, I failed, and that's okay.
Especially as coaches, right? Like I think there's such a misconception that you have to have everything looking perfect on your page. And you have to, if I'm going to coach you on, for example, profitability, then I am never going to share if I am or am not profitable, right? I'm going to just let you assume that I am. And I'm here to tell you, everyone in my audience who thinks that I've been profitable from day one and have stayed profitable, it's a lie. I have not. And as a coach, you think, oh my gosh, how could I possibly share these tools and strategies with people if I can't even achieve it myself? And the truth is like everyone has to figure it out at some point. And it's tricky as a coach to know when you be honest and vulnerable and when you kind of put up this facade of like, you want to be like us or whatever. And as women, I think it's actually more effective when we're vulnerable and transparent and just say, yeah, we've all been there and we get it.
No, that is hard because you want to show that you know how to do it too, that you are successful. Like, hey, yeah, I can do this. I've done it before, but it's really tricky because you do want to be transparent, but you also have to position yourself as an expert and, know what you're doing. So that is tricky. That is
so tricky.
Fine balance for sure.
And, not to be a man hater in any way, but maybe a little bit, unintentionally. I think that men in business are all about the big game. They will never share failures. I shouldn't say never. There's a lot that do, but it just seems like when I go to spaces of startup companies, it's all about the projections and the investors and all the things that are going right. And it gets really uncomfortable if you start talking about what's going wrong. They're not really willing to be open and transparent, and they talk a big talk and, have a big game or whatever. And I think for women, we're just kind of tired of that. We're like, it's just not how we operate.
Maybe their perception of failure is different than ours though, too. You know what I mean? Maybe because I agree. I feel like a couple things that I've noticed the difference in men and women is they are bigger risk takers. They like with women, we're like, oh my gosh, am I bugging you? I already sent like 2 emails. Like, am I bugging you?
So true.
Well, I'm on some like I was on like Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson. I'm on their email list and I'm like, oh my gosh, freaking stop sending me so many emails. Like, I mean, literally multiple a day, and they were bugging me. But I'm like, it's so interesting how women, we are like oh, I don't want to bother them. We're so sensitive to others, and men are just like, oh, I could care less. But maybe I think they're bigger risk takers, and their perception of like failure is maybe like, hey, guess what? I made, like 100,000 this year, but they don't talk about that they spent 250,000. You know what I mean? So maybe it's a perception thing, but I have noticed another thing difference I've noticed a lot, and this is a mindset thing, is men like overvalue themselves and women undervalue themselves. So it really is like we need to find a good balance between both of those things. Is like you're not bugging people, it sells, and keep putting stuff out there or nobody's going to know what you want to do, and value yourself. Like, I do think there's a formula to it, and I think that it comes with confidence and time, but value yourself. I think of even photography. So this is something that I learned in life coach school too, but there's a difference between confidence and self-confidence. So confidence comes from your past. So it's things that you've done and you've succeeded at, and so you feel confident. So I'm confident as a photographer because I did it for so long, and I was featured in magazines. I had tons of clients. People loved my work. I'm very confident with photography, right? So that's confidence that comes from my past. Self-confidence is doing something without knowing what the outcome is going to be. So I can say, give me a camera, give me 20 minutes. I can take awesome pictures. I know what the outcome is going to be because I've done it so much. I know. But self-confidence is I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to reach out to somebody and ask them to be on my podcast. And I don't care if they say yes or no. I'm going to ask them anyways. That is self-confidence. And so it really is finding the balance, finding the difference. Like, are you putting yourself out there regardless of what the outcome is? That is self-confidence. And you have to fail so it really is like having that self-confidence to put yourself out there regardless.
And to their credit, and I said this before, we as women tend to turn inwards. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. And I think men are just like, oh, that's just life. Life happens. It doesn't have to do with me. And to their credit, that is actually somewhat very valuable, right? If you're not just constantly being like, woe is me, I could never change, I could never, whatever. Sometimes it is truly life, and sometimes it is not about you. And maybe you are the best saleswoman in the world, and they just aren't ready for what you're providing, right? And it has nothing to do with you. And so to an extent, men have it right in the world doesn't revolve around them. And in other ways, it's like, okay, maybe it is actually that's the problem, but yeah.
As women, life demands a lot from us, but there is no reason for you to put your business goals on hold. At the Profitability Project, we understand that your business can't be your whole life. Balancing personal life and work is always hard, and we want to help you make the most of every day. We are here to craft financial strategies to help you achieve the lifestyle you want. With options ranging from online courses to done-for-you services, you'll discover new ways to maximize profitability, streamline your operations, and take the guesswork out of taxes. We have what you need to take your business to the next level. Interested? Learn more about the Profitability Project at theprofitabilityproject.com. That's theprofitabilityproject.com. Get ready to grow your business without sacrificing your entire life.
Well, we talked a lot about failures, and that's great. And everyone can learn so much from that. But I'm very interested to hear more about how you help people, what kind of people you coach, all of that good stuff. I think our listeners would love to hear more about what you're currently doing right now.
So I'm doing business and marketing. And again, we talked about this earlier, but like my business has evolved because when I started business and marketing, I'm like, oh, I'm helping these people with their businesses. And I would teach them marketing. So at the first, it was a lot of like, what's your ideal like client and, teaching marketing strategies. Again, my personality, I struggle because I want people to get results. And so a lot of times I was teaching marketing, but they weren't using those tools. And an analogy that I give is I say, if you have this hard wall, this big concrete wall, and you're pounding against this, this wall's not moving. So I can come to you and I can say, okay, I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to give you a key to the door you didn't see. I'm going to give you a ladder. I'm going to give you these tools. I will give you the tools, but you have to use them if you want to get around this wall. And so that was like my struggle with marketing is I was giving them the tools, but they weren't showing up. They weren't, being consistent. And so my business evolved to, okay, I'm still going to teach marketing, but I want to teach systems and automations because it is do this and then you get that. And I'm very hands-on too with a lot of my clients. So some of the things that I do is I first look at people's businesses and I say, how can we automate some of this stuff? What are the tasks that you're doing? Do you have funnels in your business? What does your post purchase funnel look like? When somebody decides to work with you, we can automate that where they get an email. Maybe the email is like an intake form. Maybe the email is educating them on how you work. Maybe the email is telling them how to schedule a session. Maybe we're automating the invoicing so you're not chasing money. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in creating these funnels and systems. I have an assistant and she's amazing, but I've created so many automations and systems and SOPs, standard operating procedures, that she hardly works. She's really just repurposing a lot of my content because I've created all these systems in our business, in my business. And so those are the types of things that I teach is how to repurpose content. That's the marketing strategy. How to automate your business. How to, I can have somebody, even my podcast, here's the link to my podcast. Then they get a series of automations that said, okay, here is the intake form, fill this out. Here is, here's the link. Here's a reminder, all those things. And then integrates into spreadsheets that sends automated emails to my assistant. So it's really just building a lot of these systems and automations in your business that ultimately frees up so much of your time. And then you focus on what you're really good at. And that's coaching or, whatever it may be, but we're creating these automations and systems. It's really hard to scale a business without automations and systems. And so those are some of the things. Then we create marketing strategies. So that's kind of the foundational thing that I will do is I'll look at someone's business. I'll look at their website. Is it optimized for SEO? Does it make sense? What kind of funnels do you have? Sometimes they don't have any. I focus on email marketing. It's huge. And a lot of people neglect email, getting people's email addresses. But I focus on just looking at a business and saying, how can we improve this and create less work for you so that you can grow and scale your business? So those are some of the things that I do. I'll look at their branding, does this make sense? So it's kind of like a big audit of your business, but how is your business running effectively? A lot of times people start a business and they just have this great idea, oh, I have this skill, I have this talent, and they're just doing it, but that is not sustainable. It won't last forever. And that's why people get burnt out because they are just always chasing the next thing because they're focusing on things that can be automated in their business and different systems. So, that's how you grow is time. Time is money. And I always say minutes add up to hours. So where can you find more minutes in your day and in your business so that you can scale and you can grow, you can look for more opportunity.
I love what you're saying, Brittni, because that goes hand in hand with profitability. We teach our clients that, first of all, you as a business owner are your most expensive asset. We talk about that all the time because time is money and you can't clone yourself, but you can hand off things to somebody else who's cheaper or automate things probably a lot more. And the more that you do that, the more your bottom line grows. So that's such a huge thing. When you talk about burnout and scalability, you could get $100,000 into your business tomorrow, but if you don't have the capacity and the systems that you're talking about, you will lose money because you'll spend too much on labor or inventory or whatever it might be, cost of goods, and you'll spend too much on operating expenses because it will just be pieced together. And so creating those systems not only helps you scale like you're talking about and grow your business, but actually get paid for that and avoid that burnout that you're talking about. So I love that.
And kind of hand in hand with what you all do is a lot of people don't optimize and utilize all of the programs and systems that they have in their business already. There's so many times where I will look at someone's business. I'm like, why are you paying for this? Because this program already has those capabilities. You're double paying for a lot of things. Or why are you paying for this? Are you using it? Are you getting an ROI on this? It seems like it's not worth your time or your money. And so I think that they really do go hand in hand, because a lot of entrepreneurs are wasting time or money. It's one or the other. And that's why they're not making a profit.
And I will like preach until I die that systems are so important. And I think so many people overlook them. And I feel like you're saying, if people, when they start out, create those systems from the get-go, they'll be smooth sailing, not so much, but they'll have a smoother ride down their journey of entrepreneurship. And so, and even we've had to like sit back and re-look at our systems. And I think I can say that our systems are pretty well put together now, but we had to rebuild those so we could make our business and not feel like we were drowning every time we got a new client.
Growing a bunch and still not making any money. I see that time and time and time again. It's like, okay, everything's going according to plan top line, but bottom line, we're still feeling like we're running around like crazy people and we're not making enough and we're working way too hard.
But I think that's a good point too. I read something a while ago and it was talking about growing your business, and it said the first year you start a business, you're lucky if you like break even, and you have all these wins. You're super excited. Like, I have a website. Yay. I have like social media. Yay. I have a logo. Yay. You're all excited. Then the second year you're like investing and you're like, okay, I'm investing a lot of money. I'm learning how to do this, but like, I'm not really making money. It really is like year 3 or 4 where you are like really figuring out, where you are starting to see like, okay, I'm getting it. I'm learning. And so I think it's important to remember, like, like small businesses, like the average small business lasts like 7 years, if that, you know what I mean? And so it's okay, but you have to just be realistic about it, that it just takes time. Like it takes time and consistency. Invest in things and people that know what they're doing. You get what you pay for. So you don't cut corners. Don't, like piecemeal everything. Like invest in things that will really help you in the long run. It might be a little bit bigger of an investment, but you'll get a higher return.
You mentioned email marketing and growing your email list. So I want to ask, like, if I'm a business owner and I'm like, Kate, my secret sauce and what I'm good at is like, I want to build my email list because I can send out really good emails. What are some like little advice or like next steps? Like, what would you suggest these business owners that want to really grow their email list? Where should they start? What should they do? What should be their kind of 1, 2, and 3 to get that growing?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs focus on social media because they think everybody's there. It's easy. I know how to do it, when they're really like missing the opportunity of email marketing. That should be the very first thing that you get is email. I've had clients before who've grown this huge social media, and we all know the algorithm, like it's so unpredictable. And so then they, as soon as the algorithm changes, it might work for them for a second and then all of a sudden it's not. And that's really frustrating. Or how many times did Meta go down last year? I mean, a few times. And so, focus on getting people's email addresses, and you can use like a lead magnet or a freebie. Like, what can you give people in exchange for their email address? The days of sign up for my newsletter are long gone. I'm sorry, that rarely works anymore. But finding something that you can use in exchange, like a guide, maybe, hey, I have this free guide. I have this downloadable, like free download. I have a training. My favorite one is I love to teach. And so I will do webinars all the time, like free webinars. Come to my webinar. You have to register to come to my webinar, and I get their email address. So again, I have an email list of, I think 12 or 13,000, which sounds big. And there are people who have way more than me. But again, I worked for every single one of those subscribers. I will say that I have run Facebook ads. In all transparency, I have run Facebook ads before, but a lot of those I just have freebies. I have things out there. Hey, here's something really valuable. Give me your email address and I'll send it to you. So I think it's consistently doing stuff. Even when I speak, and Joey knows this about me because I talked about this at UVU. I talked about how to get clients, and I said, okay, everybody, here's the QR code. Grab my guide on this, and everybody stuck up their phones and everybody put in their email address to get this a certain portion of my presentation. And so I think always be looking for email addresses. It should be your call to action all the time is, can I get your email address? I can send this to you. So it's really important to grab people's email addresses. That's part of it is growing a list. And I have probably 20 or 30 lead magnets, like guides, checklists, all these things that I'm constantly doing. Anytime I speak, anytime I have a product, I have some sort of lead magnet or something that they can get in exchange. Give me your email and I'll give you some information. And then I've done a ton of like webinars. So those are the ways to grow your list. And again, it's one of those things, like, it's taken me time to build that. Then the second part of it that you asked, Kenzie, was the email. Like the content is, once you have an email address, be committed to showing up. I have sent out an email newsletter every single Tuesday, probably for the last 5 years. So what can you commit to? If you want, you want to build it, but you have to nurture it too. Maybe you can only commit to once a month in writing an email, and that's okay. But pick what you can commit to and then show up. Again, it's becoming memorable, showing up in people's inboxes. The conversion rate of people seeing your stuff is way, 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 way higher than social media. It's like the open rate on average is between 30 to 40%, 40 to 50, depends on how your list looks. That means my list. So I have similar followings on my Instagram as I do on my email. I have an average open rate of 42 to 45%. So just let's go off of 10,000 because it's an easy number. That means 4,200 people are seeing my emails. They're opening my emails, right? I can post on my social media. Sometimes my reach is like 1,000 people see it out of, almost 11,000. Like, do the math. Like it's really like your email list is where it's at. So with the email content, use AI. I've been working on a presentation for AI, but I use ChatGPT all the time. But I like to blog, and I will take a blog or a podcast and I will turn that into content for my newsletter. 200 words is a good amount of words. Keep it short and sweet, make it personal, tell funny stories, I just have different strategies. Like I will, send out one offer email every month, one podcast email every month, one like freebie or education every month. So just creating value. And it's so rewarding when people are like, oh, I love your newsletters. I love your emails. So because you don't get the gratification, because people don't respond, like they comment and stuff on social media, but every once in a while you get that. You're like, oh yeah, I forget that people read my email. So, but it really has a higher conversion. And I think that's another part of business, is understanding analytics, understanding what's working and what's not. Because a lot of times we're just doing stuff because that's what we're told to do, but sometimes it's just like not working and you have to tweak things. So
I want to call us out, because if you asked us a year ago, we probably would have been those people who are like, email marketing, no, you don't need it. But I will tell you, since we started this podcast, almost all of our female founder guests have told us how important email marketing is. And I'm like, okay, lesson learned. We should have learned that lesson.
We were wrong.
Not that we were telling our clients not to, but now we're like, okay, obviously we were wrong.
But lots of people think that way, though. You know what I mean? Like I was, it's interesting because I was talking to a guy about his business, and he was doing something, and I said, you got to grow your email list. He's like, nobody reads emails. And I'm like, that is not true. Like, the statistics do not lie. Like, people read emails. And here's the other thing is, I told you my open rate is like, in the 40s, close to 50 sometimes. That's not including people who just see my name in their inbox. They might just delete it, but they're seeing my name. So, they're going to remember me because I'm showing up in their inbox. So, people read emails, and blogging is not dead either. Blog, because SEO, people think blogging is dead, but it is not. So
yeah, we definitely were email marketing haters. As much as I hate to admit it, I just didn't. Well, I will tell you that the myth in my head that I had in my head was that it was for product-based businesses. I was like, service-based businesses, they don't convert via email marketing. But you're sitting here telling us that email marketing works for your business. So clearly that myth is not true. And we started email marketing, and within a week already had a sale. So I really can't lie. It definitely works. I think for me, as someone who doesn't understand marketing like I wish I did, I feel like it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg situation. I always get in this loop of, okay, I know I need to email market, but I need to get people on my list. And in order to get people on my list, I need to market to people that aren't on my list. And how do I get there? You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's say I want to do a webinar. That's great. No one's showing up to the webinar. How do I get them, to hear about the webinar? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
It's true because it's a numbers game too. And so, of course, I'm going to have a higher conversion because I have a bigger email list, but you have to start somewhere. And really where I started was, social media, but social media was converting a little bit better back when I started, like even a year ago, it was converting better. But so I think it's just like, it is true. Like what comes first, you have to just put stuff out there and try, like for example, we spoke at UVU, get people on your email list right there. That's like 15 people, so it really is just, you grow your social media and convert your social media followers over. And how you do that, this is kind of a hack that I've had clients do where I've had people with really big social media followings. I'm like, okay, have let's do a freebie and then like link it in your story. Or the other one that I really like is, hey, put up a poll and say, hey, do you want me to send you this free blah, blah, blah? And then if they say yes, then you send them a DM. Here it is. Like, and you do it that way. So, so it really is like converting, people back and forth. I have a client who has 1.3 million followers on her social media. And I'm always like, we have to get those on an email list because it can be gone tomorrow. You have to make it a priority. I think you can't put all your eggs in one carton. You have to like kind of spread it around and balance it. And your email list is the one thing you own. Social media could be gone tomorrow, but you always will have those email addresses because you own your list. So
going off that, I always hear horror stories of people getting locked out of their Instagrams or their Facebooks, and email lists will save that because you'll have them a pretty little list that you can.
That happens to you. I know somebody, he's a little sketchy and a little shady, but he knows how to fix that. I had 2 friends where I'm like, okay, here's this guy's number. You have to message him on the WhatsApp app. His name is like Juan. I promise he is not sketch. Like he's helped a lot of my friends. He's probably a hacker himself and he knows how, so, but yeah, it's true. Be gone tomorrow. Like, can you imagine if you lost all your followers tomorrow? How would you get a hold of people? So do not wait for this. Do not wait. Yeah.
Not to mention it's nice. I mean, I'm a sucker for this. If I'm seeing them on social media and then I get an email from them and I keep having these touch points, like obviously stats, like the more that you're in my face, the more likely I am to buy. But the truth is that I am delusional enough to think, oh, they just came up on my social media and I got an email. It's a sign. Like I'm supposed to be working with them or I'm supposed to buy from Old Navy or whatever it is, right? Like I'm like, oh, the universe is trying to tell me something. And that is delusional and so incorrect, but it works. Like it totally works. People are like,
I think it's the law of attraction too. Because if you think about this, like there's an analogy, not an analogy, but it's like saying like, okay, I'm going to buy this yellow car. I really want a yellow car, this specific car. And then it's like, you see that yellow car everywhere. It's like, it really is like when you start thinking about stuff, like you start noticing it. And so, and the other thing with that is there was something that said you have to be exposed to something 7 times before you purchase or something like that. Now, I was reading something the other day. It said now, because there's so much information, it's like 40 times. You have to be exposed to 40 times before you purchase. And so, again, we have to change that mindset that we're bugging people. It's not. We just have to like keep reminding people, hey, we're here. Hey, we have this offer for you. We have something that can help you. So it's showing up on all the places that you can, for sure.
Okay, so now that we've heard all the amazing things that you could do for the listeners, what are kind of the things like your packages you offer? How does your coaching happen? Can you kind of go into detail on that kind of stuff?
So I do one-on-one coaching, and I usually, depends on the business, but it's usually like the minimum is like a 3-month. And I'm very hands-on. So I really believe in teaching people being self-reliant in their business. So I like people to learn as much as they can. So for example, if you need to change something on your website, I don't want you to have to say, like, oh, I have to wait for this person to change it. You know how to do a lot of things. So I think that's really important. But a lot of times there's tasks in your business that you will never have to do again. And so with my one-on-one coaching and when we're cleaning up the business and setting up systems, I'll say, do you want to do this or do you want me to do this for you and show you what I did? But a lot of times we can waste, especially as a beginning like entrepreneur, sometimes we waste like 4 hours trying to change a font because we don't know what we're doing. And so I'm super techie. And so I'm very hands-on. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to set this up for you. So it's not just, I'm not just telling you like, hey, okay, go write these emails and build a funnel. It's like, okay, here is the system. I'm going to build it. The next time you do it, you just have to duplicate it. I'll show you how to do it. But so it's a lot of like hands-on. That's my one-on-one coaching. And then they have access to me, Marco Polo, Boxer, just access to me. And we're just working through all the things in their business that they need help on. Then I also have, for people who are a little bit more self-paced, I have a business membership. It's called the Meeting Place. And it shows a lot of these automations and systems. There's tutorials, there's videos, there's templates. There's so much content in there, but that's more for somebody who can be self-paced and will take the initiative to watch the tutorials and to do it. Some people like to be held accountable and like their handheld, and that's more for if somebody wants one-on-one coaching. I also have, you can go to my website, brittnyschroeder.com, but I have a course on how to build email funnels, email funnel builder. I have grow your Instagram, grow your gram, grow your Facebook group. I have some digital courses in there. I have some templates. So that's how you work with me. Sometimes we might just need to jump on a consult and see where you're at in your business. And then I can tell you what's a good fit, but that is how you work with me.
So there's something for everyone, it sounds like. That's awesome. So you said brittnyschroeder.com is your website. Where else can we find you?
My main platform that I spend the most time on is Instagram, and that's brittny.schroeder. And then I am LinkedIn, Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Redefine Your Business. I have a podcast, Redefine Your Business Podcast. I'm pretty much everywhere. A lot of it's repurposed, but I am on Instagram. So that one is all me. I'm on there, but you can find me or send me an email. So that's how you find me.
That's awesome. Brittni, thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to know you and get to learn from you. And obviously we watch you on Instagram and in our emails. I'm on both. So it's good to get your content and just, like I said, learn from you. So thanks for being here and thanks for talking to our audience. We will post the details of how to find Brittni in the show notes, of course. And if you have any freebies that you're looking for, Brittni is the girl. So there's always something to go grab from her. That's awesome. Okay, thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to the Profitability Podcast. For more business and finance content, follow us on Instagram at The Profitability Project LLC or visit our website at theprofitabilityproject.com.